Welcome to the Picture Booking Podcast. My name is Nick Patton, and I have the honor of introducing today's host, Nadia Salomon. Enjoy!
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Picture Booking Podcast, and today I'll be your guest host, Nadia Salomon. I am the author of Goodnight Ganesha, and today I am bringing on one of my favorite people on the planet. Her name is Kari Lavelle. I'm so excited because she has so much going on. So I'm going to toss to Kari and she can tell us which book she's sharing with us today and a little something about her book.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Kari, and I'm the author of We Move the World, which came out in 2021. And that's how Nadia and I we got connected with our promo group. And most recently, But Or Face, which came out in July. And it is, both of them are nonfiction picture books. But Or Face is a guessing game where the reader is invited to guess if it's a butt or a face, and learn educational facts along the way.
Yeah, and it's quite a fascinating book because we got to read it before the book even came out with our group, or my group of the mentors. I'm sorry, the kids, now I'm forgetting.
Kids Need Mentors, right?
Kids Need Mentors program.
Oh, anyways, great group. Yes.
Yeah, Mrs. Sahagyan's class over at Ellington Elementary in Covina. And it scored so highly with the kids. It was like we couldn't stop laughing. We couldn't stop talking about, whether it's a butt or a face. And so how did you even come up with the idea to write such a book?
Well, I feel like the origin at least has a respectable origin, even if the story is completely goofy. It was August 2020, and there was an article in Atlas Obscura about how farmers in Botswana paint eyes on the back of their cattle, and it confuses predators. And so I was thinking about what that lioness is thinking as she sees those cattle with eyes in the front and eyes in the back. And I was thinking how she's thinking, is it a butt or a face? And then I started researching crazy animal butts, and the rest is history. Honestly, I did not think it was a good idea for a picture book at first. I thought there was no way that my agent would like it or an editor would like it. But it was, I was 5 months into the pandemic, and it was hard times for everybody. And just the glimmer of creativity and enjoying this research, I just kept going because I was having so much fun trying to put together a story. And I'm so glad that my agent did like it, and the editor, Kelly Bareilles-Saylor at Source Books, loved it too. So.
And what was their reaction when you first gave it to your agent and then she took it out on sub?
Yes. So when I had the call with my agent, one of I didn't have any potty humor books, but I knew that I would someday because that's kind of on brand for me. I joke I'm a 13-year-old boy trapped in a 45-year-old woman's body, but I not really, but that's just my sense of humor. And I asked Elizabeth Bennett, my agent, how would she be willing to sell potty humor kind of books, and she was willing. So she kind of knew it was coming. And I also I sometimes send her April Fool's picture book manuscripts that are not suitable for printing. So I think she knew something like this was coming. And so I told her in an email that I had this manuscript that I was working, kind of just to test the waters, to see if she would be like, no, absolutely not. And she said in the email, she thought it sounded marketable. And so then when I finished, first draft, I sent it her way and did a few edits. And then she sent it to the editors that I had been working with first with my other books. And then when they weren't interested, she sent it more widely. So
The book is very well done. Because it is, because it's like, when people hear about it, they might be like, mortified. But then when you actually see how you present it, it's kind of like a game show, and it's very interactive, and it's very fun and educational. Now, how long did it take you to kind of come up with, like, I mean, it's already a concept, but the format?
it was about a year from when I think it was about a year from when it went over a year. It went out March 2022 on sub officially. I mean, I guess I had finished it before that.
Mhm.
Um, and so the format is pretty much the same, asking, is it a butt or a face? Put in, I had facts. I had several facts within the text, and some sort of corny pun that, and then, but when it was acquired at Sourcebooks, Kelly had the idea to do the face the facts or beyond the backside. So it split into um, a couple sentences about why the animal is interesting, or the behind or the face is really fascinating, and as well as two extra facts about it. So that format evolved through the process, but it was pretty much the same when I submitted it. Not too much changed with the format. And the chart at the end, there's a chart at the end that
It's got a
has,
great back matter.
what goes in their faces and where they rest their behinds. And so kids can look at that chart to see what they eat and where they live at the end. And so that was added at the end also. But
That is super cool, because, like, when you were thinking about it as a picture book, you were thinking originally illustrations, but because it's a nonfiction, you were able to use photographs instead. What was it like, creating a nonfiction book with photographs? Like, because there's a lot of research that went into this book.
yes, the photographs in itself was a whole, you know, job. When I first sent it to my critique partners and my agent, I just took photographs off the internet, knowing that it was not going to be sold in that way. And so then I would zoom in just so they could kind of see what I was thinking of what that part could look like zoomed in, and then the reveal was on the next page. And then when I was working with Sourcebooks, they had several photo licensing libraries that I could choose. And so I would give suggestions, and then the art directors and team at Sourcebooks, they made the final choice. But several of them in both Butt or Facebooks have obscure animals that I had to reach out to. Trying to think without giving all the answers. Well, so my neighbor is an entomologist. He and his wife actually both are entomologists, and he's also a photographer. And so there's a turtle ant in one of them. And so he took that photograph. There were probably some turtle ants in the licensing that we could have made work, but I feel like his photograph was perfect. It really showed how they use their body part, and it makes it unique. So, and even now with this second book, we are kind of down to the wire trying to get a photo permission for some of the animals. And it's, because they're the best photographs that I've seen available. We also have been trying to get, I really wanted to put a photograph of the Botswana cattle with the eyes on the back in the back. And that didn't make it for the first printing. Hopefully it'll make it for the second printing, because I would love for kids to see what I was seeing in that article.
That is so awesome. And now, yeah, you have a second version of this book coming out. And that was a total surprise for me, because the other day I was like on IG, and I'm like, cover reveal. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a second book. So tell us a little bit about the second book, because the name is a little different but similar.
It's
So
it's similar. It is more butts and faces. It is called Butt or Face: Revenge of the Butts, and super silly. It is more of silly butts and faces, because in this research process, I thought, okay, this has got to be the maximum number of cool butts for this first book. But I kept discovering more and more. And I, even since then, I have friends send me crazy animals all the time. When Kelly at Sourcebooks was interested, her offer was for 2 books, and she didn't know that I have like 20 ideas for these books. So, which I thought was cool that she had that vision too, that this could be something fun and educational, that has many, many opportunities of categories of animals. So we'll see if there's more beyond 2. I would be up for it.
For sure. I think, you could make it like, a trilogy even.
Yes. Oh, and there's also a UK version, Bum or Face.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. That is so awesome.
It's exactly the same as Butt or Face, but it's Bum. And so it'll say, it's a bum.
That's so awesome.
It's fun.
And now tell us, like for the first book, like what's your favorite spread in there?
Well,
Because there are so many that you can choose from.
yes, I'd say my favorite spread is probably the last one, and I don't want to give too much away, but it's a little tricky. So it was when I discovered this. I guess I'll just reveal if you've
Can you show me?
Yes, I will show it to you. It is, so the trick is, it is the face of a pearlfish inside the butt of a sea cucumber. So when I discovered, I know, right? This is an interesting relationship between these two, in that this pearlfish even eats some of the organs of the sea cucumber, but they regenerate. It's fine. They work this out. This is what happens in nature. So that's one of my favorites. The other one, I'm not a spider girl, but I will say I fell in love with peacock spiders. There are over 90, where is it? Over 90 different species in Australia of these peacock spiders. They're very tiny. And this is one of them, but their behinds look so different. There's just a variety of crazy looking peacock spiders. And if you go into YouTube, they have these crazy, the males dance for the females up to an hour. And there's some pretty exciting BBC versions of what happens, because sometimes she eats him. So, so it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
Nature can be very wild.
My gosh, yes. I am having so much fun learning about animals. It's fascinating for me, and I hope it's engaging for kids too.
Well, I'm going to tell you, like my favorite is the spread that shows, I forget what it's called, but it's like the one that looks like the Demigorgon.
It is
like Stranger Things.
Star-nosed mole. And that is cool because it was one I'd never heard of. I feel like a lot of kids have heard of a star-nosed mole. That's one, when I'm reading, that they seem to know. They seem to be familiar with. So the star-nosed mole, it has these feelers at the end of its nose and doesn't have great vision, but it has like a super sensitive nose that it uses to quickly capture food and eat it. It's one of the fastest eaters, and it can smell underwater too, which is, wow. I know. I think maybe it's the only one that can smell, only mammal that can smell underwater. I should say, I am not an animal expert, but I'm having so much fun learning about these animals. And I have a team, including my neighbors that I mentioned, that read through these manuscripts to help make sure that I have nothing but the facts on here. So I am super indebted to this awesome team of herpetologists and ornithologists and zookeepers and entomologists, and they've been awesome. So,
well, talk to us a little bit about the research process, because as you know, when you're doing anything that's nonfiction, that's the number one craft question that people ask about. And so a lot of our listeners are from the writing community as well. Like, what advice or tip would you give in terms of craft relating to how you do your research, and how do you keep it organized? Because that's a lot of research for these two books.
It's a lot, and as I mentioned, I'm hopeful that I'll have future ones if I have that opportunity. So I use Pinterest for my I'll pin different resources. Most of those are web pages, but sometimes they're videos, sometimes they're books and so I'll pin those, and later I'll comment. I'll go through them and add them to my spreadsheet. My spreadsheet, one tab is I'll read a book and I'll make notes and I'll say the page that it's on. Another tab is a list of hundreds of animals that I put into there as possible butts or faces, and then I have it categorized, what type of animal, mammal, bird, etc. And then I also have, if we do more possible themes beyond those categories. Thank you. And just also making sure that I put sources for each of those too. And then I also have another tab for each book that has the animal. I wanted to make sure I had at least half of them were butts, because that's what the kids are coming for. They want to read about faces, but at least half of them have to be butts. And so I had to balance the butts, and I had different rows for my facts, and I had a row for the corny joke that I made, and brainstorming those. And again, I wrote my resources because I just wanted to make sure that I had explored books, web pages, podcasts, you name it, right? So that I made sure I was as thoroughly researching as possible, possibly over researching, but I would rather do that than have something that's inaccurate on this. So that is roughly my process. And I also have I keep like a folder for everything I do, and so I have I'll put articles in there, but I also have a composition notebook that I write notes in of things I need to do, or just kind of brainstorming ideas too. So that's another way I keep track of some of my things.
Now, how did you decide like what makes it into the book and what doesn't make it into the book?
I think first of all, it was the entertainment factor. Second of all, most of the animals in at least the first one, they're not as well known. The second one has a couple. I decided for the second one, since some of the readers are younger than I wanted to have a few that were more familiar to readers that were younger. And so I wanted to make sure I had in these two books a bird, a mammal, a reptile, an amphibian. I wanted to make sure everyone was represented, and that I do have two spiders in the first one, but they're very different. So I feel like that works. I really feel like entertainment factor. I wanted the best butts and faces that I could find, and I think it was just what came down to what was the most interesting and surprising.
You have also, another book coming out, which is like a PB bio. So it's also nonfiction, but this one's a little more serious because, it's the biography of Look, I am your father. I don't think I got that right, but
That was perfect. James, are you on the podcast right now? Yes, I cannot believe. I mean, I know we both have had these really special picture book biographies that we've been working on a long time, that
yes.
weren't announced when we first met, that
Right.
now they're announced. And I think we both have amazing illustrators working on it. I mean, I don't know, I'm just still pinching myself. So let me back up. Yep. So it's called Ode to Grapefruit: How James Earl Jones Found His Voice. So I am a speech pathologist and work with kids who stutter, or worked in my previous job. And so I've been sharing the story of James Earl Jones for years and years and years and years. And then I went to an SCBWI a presentation about writing nonfiction. And that's really what started me on a nonfiction path. So that was in 2016. And so it took me just a long time to do this story justice. It's the story of he, because of his severe stutter, he was silent for 8 years of his childhood. And he discovers poetry through an amazing teacher who encourages him to start talking again. And really, it's poetry that gets him to find his voice. And it's a really powerful story. It's very different from this series. So that'll be out next July. And and Brian Collier is illustrating. I didn't mention that. So,
Yes, he's
and I just
phenomenal.
can't, yes, I just can't believe it. And I've seen some sketches and early pages, and I cannot wait to share
And
them. Yes, yes.
tell us a little bit about the sketches. I know you can't
They're
share,
amazing.
but like,
They're, he just masterfully captures James Earl Jones as a child. I mean, it's beyond my dreams, Nadia. I mean, really, when this book, of any of the books I've worked on, has my blood, sweat, and tears in it. And, you know, I just am thrilled that he signed on to this project, and I can't wait to share more about it when I know more. We
did he
don't have
say
a
why
yet.
he signed on? Like what grabbed his attention? Because with each illustrator that you have, there's something that you wrote, or like, an art note maybe that you mentioned that like draws them to your manuscript. Because see, now that we're building our body of work, like we're seeing how each illustrator works differently. And so, like, with my first illustrator, it was just because of the culture, the identity, seeing,
Mhm.
South Asian identity was the reason for the sign on.
Yes.
For Murley, it was, we just had a really good connection, and he is about strong, powerful, and people, books about Black joy.
And
And
his
then the
art's
third
amazing.
one
Yes,
was
yes.
because I wrote about, like I mentioned, carom board in the book, like it's
Oh,
part of my text, and it was nostalgic for the illustrator for my third book.
I love that. Well, that's right. And we're connected with Nabi. And
Yes, and we're connected
I,
with Nabi.
yes, Nabi H.
Nabi
Ali,
Ali, yep.
has illustrated We Move the World. And I just adore these illustrations. I mean, we're lucky. We're lucky, Nadia. I
Very
mean,
lucky. I well, it's just really funny the way that like each of them works, because like my second illustrator that I'm working with, or the second illustrator that I'm working with, London Lad, for the
yes.
Merly book, he actually gave me a questionnaire to fill out, and I had never been asked that before, just to
Ooh,
see what his process is like. It's just, incredible. And so he asked me all these questions, like, I don't know if I should say, let me reserve that for another time, but like he had some really interesting questions that he asked to kind of give him a feel or flavor for like how he should, maybe do his art. And then with Nabi, he just asked me for like a reference photos or ideas. And so I went back into his body of work because I loved his super like personal portfolio more so than like the kid like um
yeah.
art that he had, because I wanted the story to be a little more gritty and
Yeah.
edgy, and like he has a great tendency with light. Like he knows how to use light, like he does in your book and like in all his work. And I was just like, oh, I love the way that he plays with light. And those were like all the different things that like I learned along the way, with what it's like to work with an illustrator. They're all different,
Yes. Yes. It's
to
so
see their
true.
process. So what was it
Yes.
like for Brian Collier?
Well, so I've had a Zoom with him at the very beginning.
Cool.
And it was, I mean, honestly, I was just trying to work through my imposter syndrome talking to Brian Collier. But
Right.
obviously he is a lovely human being. And even though I was, starstruck,
Mhm.
he just was I really just wanted to make myself available uh, for him for research, because I think my critique partners would say I was maybe obsessed with this project for a while. Um,
How could you
and,
not?
well, right.
Because he was
Yeah,
involved in your work.
it was. And it was just, I don't know. I was very, very, yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times I revised it, maybe 100, don't know, a lot. I had 5 R&Rs with different editors at different houses. So it has been through a lot of different, yeah, it's pretty cool. That, I mean, I just feel like it all was meant to be. Um, all of the work that led to here. I'm just can't wait to see how it turns out. I mean, I just can't wait. So like Christmas morning or something, when you
Right. I'm pretty positive, like knowing you and your writing and the way that you put a lot of care into your work. That's what I love about reading your work. And I mean, we're also critique partners,
Right. Yes.
right? We've
Yes.
critiqued each other's work. So it's I think people will probably be very happy to see the care that you took to write these stories and to tell James Earl Jones's story. Now, did you have an opportunity to meet with him or share that you're writing this story? Does he
I
know?
Yeah, I've reached out several times. Once before I had an agent, once when I did have an agent, and then once when it was actually acquired. And so I reached out to his manager and his agent, and to him personally. And basically every time they said, he doesn't have time for this. Understandably, I mean,
Right,
he's still making movies, and
right,
at 92, he's 92. And yeah, so but they didn't say no, please don't do this project, so I think we had his blessing. But I I have a list of questions I would ask him if he gave me the opportunity. And Brian lives, I think, like an hour-ish. This makes me sound like but I think he lives in New York, pretty close to where James Earl Jones lives. And so, gosh, I think that would be such a dream to be able to connect with him in person, on Zoom, whatever. I would love to ask questions.
like what?
And well, so one thing, they in his autobiography and anything that I've read, I didn't have any specific examples of stuttering, like a specific word. So in this book, I had to make my best guess, and that's in the author's notes, because he did say he stuttered on M's. And I also know he got into poetry. So at the end, he stutters on an Edgar Allan Poe poem, and that was made up. And so whether that'll change how they see this as a nonfiction book or not, but I felt like I could not put out a book that was about stuttering without having an example of that kind of a stutter in the book. So he most of the types of stutter that he had sounded like it was blocks where sound would not come out, but he also had repetitions of sounds like midnight. So that's one of the questions I would ask him. I also would love more information about everything, but about going to school, and about his teacher that he had such a special connection with.
Hmm.
He went to a very small school, and I think I would just love to know everything I could find out about his experience. He was born in Mississippi, but moved to Michigan, and I think
Okay.
growing up in those places really shaped who he was too. So yes, I want to know it all, but yeah,
And now tell
I'm
us how
still holding out hope.
grapefruit plays into this.
So the Ode to Grapefruit is a poem he wrote,
Okay.
and the poem was called Ode to Grapefruit, and there is not he doesn't have a copy of that, still, that doesn't remain, but it was called Ode to Grapefruit. And so I know it'll be really cool to see how that imagery and that the story of this poem shows readers about his life, because he's such an impressive guy. I mean, he's, sometimes when you're researching someone, you're like, I don't know, this person is a little too flawed for me to keep going with this project, and I don't, it gets a little complicated. James Earl Jones just really is a phenomenal human being, and so it was just a joy to research his life, and
So awesome.
it's really a slice of life. It's just his childhood kind of story, but knowing more about his adulthood too.
That is so cool.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go back to We Move the World, because since we share an illustrator in common now, it's so cool.
It is.
We Move the World is a book that is also wonderful because it's got a lot of great historical figures and events and people involved in those events that happened. And when the book first came out, it was well received. And as you know, with a lot of the stuff that's happening in Texas right now, Florida, with like the whole challenging of books, banning of books, or like, censoring of books. What's going on with We Move the World? Because that has become something different than what it was originally intended to be.
Yes. So I live in Texas, which has, I think, the most book bans next to Florida, or I don't know, for first or second, but it's not good. So We Move the World came out in 2021, in May 2021. And that December, I had an author visit set up in San Antonio, and the school, and they were familiar with my book, the administration, they know what it's about. But apparently a district official said that I couldn't go there because my book might be political. So that was heartbreaking, because, San Antonio is an hour from me. It's a diverse community that I would love to connect with. And, it's really frustrating that one person's opinion is now I think it's not banned, and it's still in the libraries and schools there, so that's good. But it just really stinks that I can't go have an author visit there and connect with readers. It's really frustrating, and I
But
keep
your book's
thinking,
not political. That's the thing. It's not political. You're just talking about, amazing people who did incredible things. And they're historical figures. And like, what is the objection to that? Like,
I wish I knew more about why this district official said that I couldn't go, but that was really all the explanation I received. Nabi H. Ali beautifully diversified all of the people that are featured in this, like especially the kids, and I worked to make sure that it was a diverse group of world changers. First of all, but when he was on the initial pages and the ending pages, I'm thinking that might be why, since we know censorship and book banning seems to be targeting marginalized voices and people of color. So I'm guessing that was part of the reason. There is a page that has Barack Obama. It's not really about him, but it's about Little Miss Flint, Mari Copeny, who wrote a letter to President Obama about Flint, Michigan's water. So I wanted to have someone who was young, and she was 8 when she wrote that letter. So, but it really, President Obama was just making a trip to there. There's a pride parade on one of the spreads, but it's very much rainbows and people celebrating. It's
right.
It
seems to be problematic. I mean, like, all these communities are being targeted, and their voice, it feels like their voices are trying to be silenced. So for you and for your book, like, how are you fighting that, or trying to, respond to that?
I am trying to get involved wherever I can. I recommend, I think many authors and book creators are as well, but I think it's really got to be the general population that gets fired up. And I also appreciate how bookstores and publishers are getting involved in this too, because I think, it really is just a few loud voices. The majority of us do not want book banning. We want intellectual freedom. And so for me, I'm trying to spread the word when I can about different organizations. Texans for the Right to Read is a favorite, more local one for me. PEN America, ALA has some great resources. So I'm trying to use social media. I am trying to send letters to my the lawmakers that when I can, and encourage others to do so. And ultimately, we keep writing our books. I mean, there are times where I think, oh, they might be coming for this book too. But
I
I
was going to ask you about that.
I haven't heard anything. I'm going to go ahead and knock on wood. But
Right? Because
I would not be surprised. An administrator was fired for reading "I Need a New Butt,"
yes,
which
I was just about to mention that.
so I would I be surprised? Not really, not really, because I keep the news from Houston that they were closing libraries in over 28 schools, I think it was, and turning them into detention centers.
Yeah,
That is deeply concerning.
very
So
scary.
yeah, so I keep thinking things are gonna we've hit the pinnacle and we're gonna turn around and get back on track to but it does not seem to be looking that way. And so I think we just we have to all keep using our voices to speak up for what's right.
And so, what's next for you?
Ooh, good question. I'm working on a early graphic novel right now. It's fiction. I kind of want to dig into some fiction, but I also always have a nonfiction project, that
Mhm.
is enticing me. I mean, you know what it's like once you get an idea,
Mhm.
it's can't ignore it. So I'm working on I want to work on some longer forms, like a graphic novel. I was working on like a middle grade, and I'm excited for next year and launching Ode to Grapefruit and the second Butterface. That is going to be really special. So yes.
And what's launch going to look like? Because um, we've only launched virtually.
I launched the Butterface a week and a half ago in person, and it was really cool. I mean, I I just loved every minute of it. It's nice to be able to do events virtually,
Mhm.
but it was really special to celebrate in person with friends and family. Um, so I'm already making plans for Ode to Grapefruit's launch. I kind of already have my game plan for that.
Oh, nice.
There's
Can you spill the beans on that a little bit?
yeah, I mean, it's not, I can. So I'm guessing I'll probably work with Black Pearl Books, which is a local and Black owned bookstore just down the street from me, that I love. And my best friend works for, the, okay, the Blank Stuttering Center. It's Arthur Blank. It's a stuttering center connected with UT, and it's an amazing facility that provides free therapy for kids who stutter. They do these cool camps, and they are now adapting these camps worldwide. It's such a cool program. So tentatively, we would probably have it there. And if it's not there, that's okay. I love talking about it because I love raising awareness about um,
Right.
stuttering and this phenomenal organization.
Now, isn't that something interesting that's come up? Like when you initially sat down and you wrote any one of these stories, We Move the World, But or Face, or like, the PV bio, like, did you ever imagine like what it would be like to be out in the world and on the bookshelves and how it impacts the world? Like, I never thought about that because like I've said plenty of times, like I sat here and it was a singular experience. But when your book actually hits the shelves, it gets into hands, it turns into something incredibly different. So, what
Mm-hmm.
has that experience been like for you for each of your books?
I think with We Move the World, it was just really cool seeing how kids and classrooms were inspired. And very differently, I'm getting all sorts of reports of giggles with butt or face and learning. So I love how that book is possibly engaging some reluctant readers. And I've heard of one of the best reviews I read was someone wrote that their teenager put down their phone and started listening to this book. And I thought, well, it's beyond the age level that we had projected. But I love that. I love hearing adults that tell me, oh, I only got 50% of them right. And I mean, I love that people are enjoying this. And I think when Ode to Grapefruit comes out, I just hope that I will look forward to talking about stuttering and having a platform to speak passionately about that topic. And I both for people who stutter and for people who don't know about stuttering, right? And I think I will, yeah, each of these is such a different experience. My books are so different, which is okay. Yeah, but we contain multitudes, right? And so, yes, I'm looking forward to enjoying these experiences for what they are, and I'm super grateful.
And now, if you had to leave us with one takeaway from your body of work, what would it be?
Woo! Oh goodness. Just one. Okay.
Or
Um,
more?
no. I mean, I think We Move the World is a great example of how the small things we do matter. And so I think for all of us, whether we're writing, just taking 5 minutes to work on a project counts, whether we're making the world a better place with a smile or uh, anything that we choose to do. I think those small things matter. And so that would be probably my best takeaway to leave listeners with.
Thank you so much, Kari. It was so
Not
awesome having you on. And thank you for taking the time because I know you're very, very busy. And thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. I am just so honored to have this opportunity to be here with you and have this conversation. And I wish we had more time because we could talk for
Oh
a
yeah,
few
like we
hours.
usually can't stop talking, but for purposes of the show, we're like, oh yeah,
Yes,
we have to have a cutoff.
we have NCTE. We have all week
Oh
to.
yeah. We have NCTE coming up where we're actually going to be on a panel together, which is going to be exciting because we are going to be talking about, banning, book challenges, and censorship, and what, you know, teachers and kids can do to challenge those challenges in a way.
Yes, yes,
So
yes. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, same here. And it's in November, so it's right around the corner. And all our stuff just got released, like our schedules. So that's super exciting. So I'm looking forward to that.
Phew, I can't wait. I can't wait. I know it'll be here before we blink.
I know. Thank you so much, Kari, for joining us. And
Thank
thank you,
you.
everyone, for tuning in and listening to our conversation today. And until next time, bye.
Thank you.